Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? You want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report and then check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. They offer a life-changing, dynamic financial solution. The finest in fast, professional, affordable credit repair. They have affordable monthly prices. They accept Visa, MasterCard, PayPal options available. You go to www.dynamicsolutions2, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions.
Hey you, podcast listener, this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.
Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by SubashTechnosis.com. If you need any kind of search engine optimization, website design, content writing, press releases, customer service, SubashTechnosis.com. These are your guys. Contact Subash. Tell me you're friends with Ed Opperman. He'll cut you a good deal. Working on some new projects with Subash Technosis. We're going to have that I'm designing for them, as a matter of fact. Okay. There's a whole partnership going on here now. So check out too on Facebook, Subash Technosis LLC. Give them a like on there and help support the show. Before I get to my guest, really quick, last night we did a show with Daniela Walls from the Tax Wall Street Party. It was a live show. We had a little glitch with getting the show up on YouTube. Normally they go up immediately after the show. It goes automatically through Spreaker, right? We had an issue, and the show didn't get up until 5 o'clock today. But if you wake up, I know a lot of people, they wake up Saturday morning, they want to hear last night's show. If you don't see the show there on YouTube, don't panic. Don't start contacting me and emailing me and stuff like that. It just slows everything down. It just makes things tougher, okay? Just be patient. I promise it'll either be up there if we can, or else I'll tell you where to find it. I promise. If I can't get up on YouTube, I'll do a YouTube video announcing where you can find it. Okay. My guest today is Clive Doyle. He's the author of the book, Journey to Waco, Autobiography of a Branch Davidian. Clive Doyle was one of these Branch Davidians. He lived there. And this was his faith. And he was attacked by the ATF and the FBI. I believe, tragically, he lost his daughter. And he has burns still to this day on his body. And that he was charged with murder and almost faced prison. Clive Doyle, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Can we start off? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your life right now today? How is Clive Doyle?
A lot older than I was when it all happened. I still live in Waco. I'm retired and still getting to tell people about what happened periodically. So that's why I'm here.
Right. Now, can you tell us about your faith? What was it that got you into this Seventh-day Adventist Branch Davidian faith?
Well, it all started back when I was 10 years old. Some neighbor children lived next door to us told us that they had seen a tent down at about a mile from the house, and they wanted to go check it out, but their parents wouldn't let them. So they asked my mother and I if we would escort them there, you might say, and chaperone them. So we went. I thought it was going to be a circus or something, but it turned out it was an evangelistic deal put on by the Seventh-day Adventists. So as a result of that, my mother and I joined the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Over a period of time, we were studying with some other people and ended up becoming Davidian Seventh-day Adventists. And in 1964, we got some literature from America because I was living in Australia at the time. We got literature from America and basically read ourselves into the Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventists. And so I had come over here to the United States and was living at Mount Carmel, just outside of Waco, Texas, at the time that a man by the name of Vernon Howell showed up. And as a result of listening to what he had to say in 1983, I believed that he was a messenger of God. I accepted what he was presenting, and we ended up joining with him and was there at the time that the ATF decided to raid the place.
Now, your faith today is the same? You're still following the same doctrine?
Yes, I am.
Okay. It's interesting. You mentioned that you ran into this Seventh-day Adventist at a tent ministry, because I actually lived and worked in a Pentecostal tent ministry from around 1990 to 1994 in my own life. So if you maybe if it run into us, things would have turned out a little different for you. But you're still you would describe yourself as the same exact faith as you've always had since this time in 64, I guess, right?
Right.
Okay. Now,
I haven't given up.
Gotcha. Well, your faith is probably the most powerful thing in your life. If you make that the rock, your foundation. Now, all these allegations that you hear about what was going on down there under Koresh, these things about multiple wives and children out of wedlock. Did you see any of these things?
Well, let me just say that if you've had any experience with a prophet of God, either living or in the scriptures, you'll find that God quite often asked prophets to do certain things that were, you might say, contrary to the norm, what public opinion would accept or what you would expect. As a Christian, for instance, you'd be horrified at what some of the prophets in the Bible did, for instance. And so in the case of David Koresh, he believed God was talking to him, and he believed that what God was asking him to do was to be basically a living witness to the hypocrisy that you find in Christianity today. You have people professing certain rules and regulations or standards, and actually behind the scenes they're doing something else. And so quite often God asks a prophet to demonstrate that. In ancient times, in biblical times, the prophet Isaiah, for instance, was asked to run around stark naked for 3.5 years. And, that was quite a challenge even for him to be able to come to grips with. And so he asked God, what am I going to say when people ask me what the heck I'm doing? And God says, you explain to them that if they don't listen to this message that I'm sending through you, this is the way they are going to look when they are carted off into captivity, which ultimately happened some years afterwards in the time of the Babylonians. They would, in the old days, most battles of conquest that went on, the victors would round up trophies of war, you might say, and take them back to their city, to their capital, and parade them down the street and see what we've done, sort of thing. See all the different ones that we've conquered. And so Isaiah was asked to demonstrate this, which was pretty embarrassing to him, I imagine. It was so totally against, you might say, the laws of the land. It was contrary to, public opinion, what was considered polite or appropriate. And so, and he wasn't the only one. Throughout the Bible, you find people that were asked to go marry prostitutes to demonstrate that the relationship of God's people, the church, you might say, had become so estranged from God, who was to be considered their husband in a spiritual way, that, these prophets were supposed to demonstrate that they were actually operating as a religion. They were actually hypocrites, or they were adulterers, or fornicators, or whatever, in the eyes of God. And so prophets being asked to do that, if they took on the job, in most cases it got them killed, because the people didn't like being told what to do, and they certainly didn't like prophets pointing out their sins.
Well, let me ask you this. But in the Old Testament, with these prophets, there would be accompanying miracles or victories in battle and stuff like that to ultimately, vindicate them as they were valid prophets, correct?
Many of the prophets in the Old Testament had prophecies that directly, not always were they fulfilled in their lifetime, but in many cases they were. And so when that happened, of course, they were vindicated. But most of the prophets, in reality, aside from the historical setting and the immediate situation, most of those prophets were actually writing for the last days. Their prophecies were long-term, so right. The vindication wasn't always within their lifetime.
Okay, now, did you see these kinds of, what convinced you that David Koresh was a legitimate prophet? What did you see in him?
Well, it says in the Bible that there was nothing about Christ that the people, that would make the people desire him of himself. It was the Spirit that was within Christ, and I believe within all of the prophets, that convinces a person. The Spirit in the prophet and the Spirit that's within the person that's listening has to harmonize. You have to be convinced or convicted in order to align yourself with that. If you're not convicted, if the Spirit doesn't move you to, put it on your heart, you might say, or on your mind that this is truth that's being presented, then you undoubtedly wouldn't join. And so there has to be a certain amount of inspiration, you might say, not only in the speaker, but in the audience.
Okay. Now, in this church there down in Mount Carmel, what did you see, like the fruit of the Spirit and the gifts of the Spirit? Was there healing? Was there prophecy? Was there tongues? Describe to me, what would go on in a daily worship session and teaching and a Bible study?
What David said was that God, he wasn't going around healing, and he wasn't going around doing miracles of any kind or speaking in tongues, as you asked. His miracle, you might say, was the fact that he could teach the Bible, and in my case, better than I'd ever heard before. So, we had people that joined with David that were ministers from various churches. We had people there that had college educations. One of the people that was with him had taught comparative religions in Hawaii. And so, it wasn't a bunch of, you might say, country bumpkins or uneducated people that latched on to David. There was all kinds from all spectrums, from many different countries in the world, many different education levels. And so I believe what I saw taking place over the 9 years that I was with him, that it was definitely a manifestation of miracle working power, but in a message rather than in actions and doing miracles or something like that.
Yeah, teaching is definitely one of the gifts. That's good. Now let me ask you, but these things back before, when I asked you about these allegations of multiple wives and children out of wedlock, and weren't there some child abuse charges too as well? Did you see any of these things, or you think that it was okay to do that?
The government always makes charges of child abuse. That's one of their winning tickets to justify their action in the eyes of the public. But there was no child abuse that I was aware of. There were women who, as a result of the Bible studies that were being given, chose to, you might say, have relations with David, produce children by David, but they believed that was God's will. And so, I would go along with that as long as I'm convicted that God was talking to him, and they were convicted that what was being asked was for a very good reason, you might say.
Now, these women, were they married when he took them, or were they single women?
Started out with single women. Okay. Toward the end, he did have some relations with some women that had been married. Okay.
So then those allegations you see, about the women, where I guess we can say were okay, when were real. What was it that brought the attention of the ATF to this church, to the extent that they would insert undercover agents and establish a satellite residence across the way there? What was it?
Well, it started out by some, disgruntled members that had left some years before, stirring up stories. They tried to get various law enforcement agencies to shut us down, you might say, but most of the people that they went to, that they brought their allegations or their stories to, paid very little attention to them. It wasn't until they started talking about the fact that we had guns that the ATF pricked up their ears and decided that they were interested. And but most of the reports that went to the ATF prior to the raid were not recent. In other words, the information might have been eight months old or a couple of years old, and based on that fact, they really did, without investigating further, they shouldn't have gone and got a warrant on those grounds. I mean, the information, you might say, was stale, but the ATF went ahead and made plans to put this raid together, partly as a what shall we say, a public spectacle. They wanted to justify themselves to the Treasury Department, who, from what I understand, was in the process of taking the ATF out of business and dividing all the agents up amongst other existing law enforcement agencies. So they wanted to make a show, you might say, to convince the Treasury that they were still a viable force, they were still needed, they were doing a good job or whatever. They even nicknamed the raid as Operation Showtime.
Oh, really?
And they invited the press, which was probably one of their biggest undoings. They invited the press to come and film it all, and they actually, were sorry they did that. Then when it all went sour, they tried to put all the blame on the press. Well, they leaked, the fact that they were coming out that day and tipped us off, so to speak, when in reality, they were the ones that were tipping everybody off because they were so clumsy and an undercover agent, if you're going to have an undercover agent, he needs to be able to infiltrate without being detected. You don't take over a house across the road and sit over there shooting guns and coming over for a visit, pretending to be students at the technical college and all this sort of stuff. That didn't fool anybody. So, in reality, they themselves were the biggest tip-offs that something was going on.
Well, so when you met these undercover agents, when they came by, you suspected that they were some type of federal agents?
Oh, sure.
And what did you suspect?
Here's the thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Back in the November of '92, our neighbor from across the road, who happened to work for the Double E Ranch, came over. He and his family used to come over, and his kids would play with our kids and so forth. They'd come over to watch movies, or they'd come over to have a Bible study or whatever. So what was happening was, the guy from across the road came over and he said to David, he says, "Do you think I could get some help this coming week to fix up the empty house that was next door to him?" And so David sent some guys over there to help him out. We kind of thought, well, whatever it is he wants to do, maybe if we all pitch in, it'll be like a barn raising or something. We'll get it done in a hurry. And it turned out it was more of a long, an ongoing project. So David kind of restricted it after a while. He said, well, we've got work here to do as well. We can't allow all the guys to go over and, do this all the time. So in the course of working on this house, some of our guys said to the neighbor, "Why are we fixing this house up? Is it going to be for rent? Is the owner of the ranch that you work for, is he going to fix it up and rent it out?" And he came back a couple of days later and says, "Well, it's not for rent." He had a black woman that worked down at the main ranch house, and he said she's going to be living in it with her teenage son. So that was all right with us, no problem. But in January, like a month or so later, one of our guys who was jogging around the perimeter of the property come back huffing and puffing and says, "I guess what I saw." And I said, "Well, what did you see?" And he says, "Well, there's a bunch of guys moving into that house that we were working on. I said, oh, okay. I guess the lady's not going to move in. Got some guys moving in there instead. And so he says, but that's not the weirdest thing. He says they've got no furniture. They got no suitcases with clothes or anything. All they've got are these long cases that look like rifle cases. So that was a kind of a bit of a tip-off. Eventually, cut a long story short, they made contact by coming over on one pretext or another and visiting, and their story was that they were students at the technical college. Well, these guys were in their 40s and so forth. They were not kids, they were not young people even. They were middle-aged, and they all had brand-new cars.
Oh, boy.
And so we checked them out. We checked them out with the college. Do you have students by these names or with these license tags on their cars? And they said, no, we don't. And so, all kinds of red flags were cropping up over a 4 or 5 month period that indicated that we were being, we were in the process of being watched. Now, David didn't ever say to us, this is the ATF. What he thought they might have been, to begin with anyway, was from the immigration, people, because we had students from all over the world. And we figured, well, maybe they're a little concerned with all these different nationalities being there, that we were had illegal immigrants or whatever. So I remember David counseling the people one night in the meetings. He says, I would recommend that instead of just going for a walk by yourself at night or even during the day, that you go with somebody else. You have somebody else there, either a group or at least a couple of other people. That way, if it is immigration and they're picking you up for questioning, we'll know what happened. Otherwise, if you just disappear, we won't know what the heck's going on. And so turns out, of course, it wasn't immigration. It was the ATF. And they never at any time found anything that they could report back to their superiors that we were doing anything illegal.
When they came over for their Bible study, did you ever ask them, hey, what's the story, guys? What are you, cops?
I don't know that David confronted them, but
no.
A couple of them came over one night with this flimsy story that, hey, David, we went to a gun show or we went to a pawn shop or something, and look what we got. We got this rifle, and David asked him, well, do you mind if I have a look at it? And so they handed it over to him, and he said he stripped it down right in front of them in like 30 seconds sort of thing, looked at it, put it all back together and handed it to him. And he says, this is not something you found at a pawn shop or even at a gun show necessarily. He says, because this is a sniper rifle. He says, there's only so many of these in the country. So, you wouldn't be finding these just being bandied about or sold here and there at gun shows. And he said that their faces about fell on the floor when he put that to them.
Yeah, that would be a pretty bad mistake, because you guys were going to gun shows.
Everything they did was a mistake.
Yeah.
They used, when they finally got a search warrant, I don't know how they convinced the judge or whether he was just lax or what, but some of the wording in the search warrant had nothing to do with the ATF. It was not in their jurisdiction. The ATF, that's not their job to worry whether children are being spanked or whether, people are living in sin or what particularly. But, they use that language to get the warrant. There was something about it, in my opinion, that raised a red flag with the judge, because what he ended up doing was he made the search warrant for one day and only during the day, not at night. So on the day of the raid, before the raid took place, they sent one of the guys they thought was an undercover agent. They sent him in to do a last-minute check as to what we were doing, whether anybody had guns or whatever. And it was during his visit that the television guy encountered one of our guys going to buy a newspaper, encountered him down the road, and when he was asked, did he need help or whatever, he's asked him.
Did I lose you? I hope Danny's there. Hey, Danny, I think we lost the connection. Talking to Clive Doyle, author of the book Journey to Waco, Autobiography of a Branch Davidian. You can find a link over there at the Opperman Report bookstore. Clive Doyle was one of the, lived there in the Branch Davidian home compound there. They like to call it a compound. When the ATF came and attacked with those tanks and they set the place on fire, they inserted tear gas in there with a bunch of little kids. Tragic number of people died in this case. I think only 9 people got out alive, and Clive Doyle is one of them. 53 adults and 23 children were killed after a 51-day siege by the FBI. And now a word from our sponsors.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
Well, I'm trying to call Clive here. See if I can get him back.
Hello.
Oh, Clive, we got you back?
Yeah, I think we got cut off somehow. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Okay, you were talking about how that morning one of your friends, housemates there, ran into a TV reporter down the road, and there was some kind of information exchanged.
One of our guys was a mail carrier, and the local newspaper had started to run a series on us, a derogatory series on us in the paper. It was supposed to last a week. And so what they did, they came out with the first issue on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday morning, which was the day of the raid, a couple of our guys went out to buy newspapers so that we could get the second edition, see what was in it. And so one of our guys went out our front gate and went to the left. He never came back. We learned later that he was arrested and held in custody at the motel where all the ATF were stationed, or where they were staying. And so the other one went to the right, and when he got about a mile or so down the road, he saw a car parked on the side of the road, and so he stopped to offer assistance. He thought maybe they were broken down. And it turned out that it was this guy from the TV station, and he said he was looking for Mount Carmel. And so he asked him, well, you're practically there, it's just up the top of the hill there. You can't miss it. He says, well, why are you looking for Mount Carmel? And that was when the guy told him that he'd received a report, like many various media people had been told to show up and, like I said, film the thing. So he was there for that reason, but he said, they'd got word that there was supposed to be like a big raid or something on this place, and that he was there to cover it. So this young man, this mail carrier, continued his way down the road, but he went to a phone and called back in and said something's going on. You know, the you can expect company sort of thing. And so at the same time, one of the ATF guys from across the road was in there talking to David in our foyer, just inside the front door. And so when that happened, you know, David kind of confronted him and says, well, sounds like they're coming. Whether he knew who they were, I don't know, but and that scared this ATF agent. He made an excuse that he had to leave in a hurry and go eat breakfast. And so he went barreling out of our driveway like a maniac and honking his horn and everything. And he got over to the house across the road, and he's asking where the leaders of the raid were. They said, oh, they're all down at the staging area downtown, about 10 miles away. And so he came flying out of the house across the road and went down, flying down the road. And so from what I understand, when he got downtown, they were in the process of loading up in the trailers on the back of the trucks. And he's yelling at them, call it off, they know you're coming. Well, they'd invested so much effort, I guess, into putting this thing together. They had agents from 5 different states, and like I said, their warrant was only good for a certain number of hours, and so they didn't want to call it off. They wanted to go ahead with it, and so they ignored him and come rushing out there.
Let me slow you down for 1 second. What were they expecting to find in there? Like 1,000 guns, automatic machine guns, hand grenades? What were they expecting?
They had come to the conclusion, without any real proof, but they'd come to the conclusion that weapons were being altered from just regular semi-automatic or whatever to fully automatic, which is basically illegal unless you've got a special permit. And so that's what they expected to find. The warrant was for the arrest of David Koresh and for searching the building. And they supposedly had no qualms with anybody else in there. And yet, rather than, like I say, call it off and reschedule it for another time, they decided to go ahead. Now, during our trial in San Antonio, some of the ATF agents that were put on the witness stand were asked, you know, well, what did you do when you first heard the guns going off? And they said, well, 3 of them, I think it was, ran behind one of our vehicles that was pulled up across the driveway at the north end of the building. And they said, well, what did you think where did you hear the shots coming from? They said, from down near the front door. And they said, well, what did you think was happening? And they said, we figured our guys were shooting their dogs. That was their statement. And which they were. They shot 5 of our dogs that were right there inside a fence. One of them chained to the flagpole just near the front door. But the dogs were not in any way attacking them or able to get to them because of the fence. But what they wanted to do was to get into the dog area so that they could put flashbang grenades through the windows, you know, to disorient us or whatever you want to call it, distract us. And so they shot the dogs. But that initial shooting, they were not only shooting the dog, they were shooting into the building as well. They shot David and his father-in-law right inside the front door. And so, you know, on the strength of that, or as a result of that, some of the members that were in there that either had guns or were able to get guns returned fire.
Let me ask a couple of questions. How many guns were in the compound there, in the house?
I don't know exactly.
Okay.
I'm sure that the government could tell you how many they think or allegedly found, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, and
most of the guns were that David had. He had been dealing with a particular gun dealer south of town, and this guy had put the proposition to him that if he would invest in these, what they call assault weapons, AR-15 or, these Russian Kalashnikov type of guns, that the government was about to have them banned from being manufactured or imported or whatever. And so they said the way the law was going to read was that if you had them, you could continue to sell them.
Right.
But there wouldn't be any more after they ran out, so to speak. So he said, this is a good way to make it. The prices on them would go up after the cutoff date, and you could make some money reselling them. And that was the initial deal that, they were coming. They were in crates. They were all disassembled. They had to be put together in order to sell them as a rifle. And so that's what David, from what I understand, was doing, was assembling them. And
what was he selling them, or he was gonna hang on to them, or was he selling them at the time as well as buying them?
Say that again.
After he would assemble them, was he selling them at the time, or was he holding on to them?
We had guys that were going to gun shows around, especially around Texas, and so that we sold some guns leading up to the raid. Mostly what we were selling was stuff we'd bought from an Army disposal outfit that went out of business. We bought up their supplies. They had like military clothing, camouflage clothing, different things like that, MREs, all that kind of stuff that they sell in an Army disposal place. And so that had been an ongoing business for a while, selling those kind of things.
Now, besides that, though, were you as a group also like stockpiling weapons for self-defense and food storage and that kind of thing as well?
Did we have food storage?
Yeah, you know how people
we
had
a lot of food. We had a lot of people. So,
but you know how people are survivalists.
There was a certain amount of stockpiling when it came to food and things like that, because we had, like I say, we had quite a few people to feed. There was basically about 130 of us there at the time of the raid.
And also, too, now, am I correct that you had buried a bus underneath the dirt?
David buried a bus at the north end of the building that went from the end of the building out towards another building that we were building, which was basically a storm shelter. We were planning on putting a second story on it. The first story was under the ground, and so the bus gave us an opportunity to go from the building to the storm shelter without coming above ground. But then we were going to build on top of that in order to fix cars and things like that.
Now, when this attack first started, because it is outrageous for them they have an arrest warrant for one individual, and they show up with a whole army. They're shooting tear gas and shooting dogs. It's outrageous, no matter how you look at it. Now, when this starts excuse my language, but hell starts breaking loose, where were you in the house and what did you do?
At the time they drove in the driveway, I was in my room on the front side of the building on the first floor up toward the north end. David told everybody when he heard that somebody was coming, he said, I want everybody to go back to their rooms and just stay calm. He said, I'll go down to the door and see what they want. And so myself, I went back to my room, and I could hear him walk down to the door, down the hallway, and about the time he got to the door and opened it, I heard him yell out, hey, wait a minute, there's women and children here. And then, as you say, all hell broke loose. Just a huge barrage of gunfire coming into the building. And in my opinion, just from listening to it without being able to see it from inside my room, I figured that there would have been a bloodbath down at the front door. So my instinctive reaction was to run down there to see if I could render aid to anybody that might have been wounded. And so I made a beeline down the hall, and I got about halfway down, and David's father-in-law was crawling on his hands and knees up the hallway, screaming that he'd been shot. And so I stopped and tried to calm him down and see how he was, how badly he'd been wounded and everything. And then I said to him, is anybody else shot? And he says, yes, David was shot. He said David was standing right in front of him. David opened the door, and they shot him through the arm that was resting on the door. And so he slammed the door and ran upstairs, and he ended up catching another bullet upstairs in the stomach. So,
So did you guys go run for guns too?
What's that?
Did you go run and look for your gun?
No, I was trying to render aid to those that were wounded.
Right.
But not everybody had guns. They tried to make out that we'd been tipped off
right
maybe half an hour before they got there, and we had immediately gone into ambush mode and just were mowing them down as they started driving in the driveway, which is a total lie.
Yeah, they actually did a made-for-TV movie like that has a whole scene where you guys, everybody in that building is standing with machine guns, But obviously, that's been all.
The shooting.
Yeah.
The shooting went on for about 2.5 hours.
Oh my God!
Before we managed, we're the ones that initiated. Let's get a ceasefire going. We called the sheriff's department or 911.
Right.
And the sheriff's department couldn't even get in touch with the ATF for about 40 minutes. So the shooting's going on all of that time pretty heavily. Then, it took another hour and a half or so to get it stopped completely because they claimed they couldn't reach all of their guys because only 1 in every 3 had a radio. They were divided into groups of 3, and only the leader had a radio. So getting the word out and getting it implemented and all of that kind of stuff took some time. But after that, we realized after that we were in for, anytime there's an officer down,
right.
Law enforcement wants to beat the heck out of you sort of thing, come back and get revenge. And so...
Let me ask you this, though. There's a lot of documentaries out there and they're pretty well done, some of them, that these officers were killed by friendly fire. They were killed by their own other officers or even helicopter fire. And some of it looks very convincing. What do you think of all those theories?
Well, some of them are way out there. A lot of people make accusations against the government that I don't uphold at all. But during our trial, we did get one of the guys, if you've seen any of the footage from that particular day, they put 2 ladders up on the side of the chapel,
right,
onto the roof. And there were 2 teams went up these ladders. to the nearest window on the south side of the building, and another group went over the hump of the building, over the hump of the roof to the other side, and were trying to break into a window over there. There were 3 guys that went into that first window, and we got the leader of that contingent to, during trial, he said that in all likelihood he may have shot his own guy inside the room.
Yeah.
And I said, well, how did that come about? Or you know, what was going on with that? And he said, well, I was trying to ricochet. I was spraying bullets in all directions, but I was trying to ricochet it off the walls. And we're going, you don't ricochet bullets off a sheetrock. You know, that don't make any sense at all. But that was his story to begin with. And so he said the 3 that went in kind of situated themselves in a triangle, and he was on the bottom part of that triangle spraying in all directions. So at least one guy was almost directly in front of him. So he kind of, from what I remember, he half-heartedly admitted that he may have wounded his own guy. There's all kinds of stories about the guy that was sliding down the ladder, shot himself in the foot or something. I don't think that's necessarily a true statement from what I was able to glean from the trial. But one thing that they never let on about is the fact that there was snipers and stuff across the road shooting, and all their men are on the driveway parallel to the road. So they're having to shoot past them to hit anybody in the building, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, somebody suddenly stands
whether
up.
any of those was friendly fire, it's hard to say. A lot of it looks suspicious. I've seen footage that, you know, like there's one guy behind a van out the front, near the front door, and his gun jams or something, and he's jerking it back and forth, trying to clear it. And the next thing, there's a guy that's shot, he killed, you know. So whether he shot him or not, I don't know. And I'm not about to swear up and down who did what to who, you know, in that case. But there were so many situations like that they wanted to, you know, the idea was if they were there to arrest David, well, then David's on the first floor. That's where all the men were. They knew where the men were in the building. The men were on the first floor. All the women and children were on the second floor. So when you watch those footages of the shooting, these agents are shooting into the second floor. By and large, there was shooting at the first floor, especially around the front door. But a lot of it's going into the rooms where the women with their small children were. And to me, that's it. That's criminal in my mind, at least careless, you know.
What about helicopter fire into the building? Did you witness any of that?
Not personally. The helicopters were actually circling long before the trucks got out there. They were circling around for about a half hour before the trucks came. They claimed during the trial that nobody fired. There was no firing from the helicopters. But under cross-examination, after basically lying through their teeth for quite a while, they finally got themselves in a jam, and they got the pilot who was on the stand to say, well, what I meant was there were no mounted guns on the helicopter.
Okay, Clive, we got a commercial break coming up, Clive. Clive Doyle, Journey to Waco, autobiography of a Branch Davidian. Get right back after this. And now a word from our sponsors. OppermanReport.com. Hey, do you like what you're hearing? Do you like the work that you see us doing here at Opperman Report? You can support that work by becoming a member at OppermanReport.com. And as you have access to over 200 exclusive shows and interviews that you can't find on YouTube or Spreaker or iHeart or iTunes or KYAH. You can't find them anywhere else online, exclusive to our member sections, to our members. Also, too, there's images, videos, documents, court docs. And don't forget, you can hear your ad played here on the Opperman Report, reach hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people on a daily basis because the show is repeated every day all over the world. Contact me at oppermanreport@gmail.com and I'll give you a good deal on advertising rates.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? You want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report and then check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. They offer a life-changing, dynamic financial solution. The finest in fast, professional, affordable credit repair. They have affordable monthly prices. They accept Visa, MasterCard, PayPal options available. You go to www.dynamicsolutions2, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions.
Hey, you, podcast listener. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.